The data encryption standard DES started in the 1970s within the technology labs of the company IBM. However, it wasn't called DES back then. You see, DES was a later modified version of IBM's Lucifer cipher, or to be more specific, the Lucifer block ciphers, which in cryptography was the name given to several of the earliest civilian block ciphers. Now, interestingly, the inventor of these ciphers was Horst Feistel, who was a German physicist who worked for IBM at the time. However, Feistel likely developed the cipher long before he worked at IBM. But due to issues post the World War and his German heritage, he often was discriminated in various other companies he worked in until he made his real big break in IBM. Now, you have to remember that encryption back then in the 1970s was an emerging technology, largely restricted to academics and government agencies, but the need for strong encryption in the world was growing, especially with the advent of shared computing. By 1973, Feistel published a revolutionary new article in that year's edition of Scientific American. But the article provided merely a broad outline of Feistel's approach, because Feistel was wary that the NSA, the National Security Agency, at the time had a monopoly on a lot of the good encryption, and he did not want his algorithm to be stolen. As very few people outside the NSA knew what made a strong encryption algorithm back then, and the NSA was sure to keep any such information classified. But Feistel's article did cause a stir and brought IBM into the mainstream, detailing how encryption can help businesses and general civilians. This obviously caused a bit of a stir between the NSA and IBM, aka Feistel, and the debate whether encryption should be public or classified information. Eventually, the government realized what they needed was a single, strong standard that would create trust and help the growing information technology market thrive. So, how did the government do this? Well, the key word is trust, and in order to get trust with Feistel, and in turn businesses and civilians, the NSA sought the help of the National Bureau of Standards, NBS. And the NBS still exists today, although it's called something else. If you stick around to the end of the video, there will be a fun fact on what the NBS became. But for now, the NBS was tasked with soliciting encryption algorithms from the public, and IBM ultimately submitted two of Feistel's. The first one being the 128 128-bit key, which he called Lucifer, and then another one after some back and forth, which later became known as DES, the Data Encryption Standard. Now, an interesting technical keynote. A solution was created by NBS which involved reducing the key size from Feistel's original 128-bit key, aka Lucifer, down to just a 56-bit key. Given the distrust by academics and Feistel around the NSA's classified encryption algorithms, and then this reduction in key size, this led to various conspiracy theories as to why the NSA and the NBS was looking to reduce the key strength size. As such, extensive research was being conducted to mount attacks against the DES algorithm to show its inherent weaknesses. In fact, in 1975 and 1976, Martin Hellman, a professor of computer science at Stanford University, along with his research assistant, Whitfield Diffie, and through their extensive research, estimated for around $20 million, the US government could essentially build a machine that was capable of breaking or reversing the encryption keys. What's more, Diffie and Hellman mentioned that just adding 8 more key bits would increase the difficulty by a factor of 256, making a key search practically impossible, and so grew skeptical of why the NSA would not add even those extra 8 bits to make DES secure. You can refer to my previous video on the Diffie-Hellman key exchange, which covers the full history and also the technicalities of how that very impressive algorithm works. There is a lot of maths in that video. But for now, let's finish the story of DES. So, with conspiracy growing ripe and academics proving that DES was insecure and unfit for its purpose, nevertheless, DES was published in 1977, but not without a fight from IBM and Feistel. You see, Feistel joined IBM in 1968, and by 1971, IBM filed a patent application for Feistel's block cipher cryptographic system, to which the NSA reviewed the application and issued a secrecy order blocking publication of the patent. But the NSA's order, dated October 17, 1973, was 5 months after the Scientific American article IBM had earlier released, which was based on Feistel's idea. And as such, the NSA rescinded its court order in November 1973. And in March 1974, a year later, a US patent was published, with Feistel listed as the inventor. This was largely the blueprints to the 1977 DES publication, on what was then the most groundbreaking encryption algorithm in the world at that time. But as you can see, the history was not without its own controversy. Similar government curveballs were thrown at Diffie and Hellman in the separate video that you can watch linked here. And the key differentiation between Diffie-Hellman was that it was more focused on a secure channel and way to send such symmetric keys, such as the DES key, and also through a lot of complicated maths, making sure the encryption and the channel was secure. But to finish this video on DES and how it all ended. By 1975, IBM knew that the 128-bit Lucifer key was vulnerable to differential cryptanalysis attacks. And ultimately, there was some ironies in that later on, in hindsight, it was found that actually shortening the key may have been the right thing to do. As published in a 1994 journal by IBM in the research and development team, 4 years after Feistel's death. However, either way, by the 1990s, computer scientists widely acknowledged that the 56-bit key was no longer secure, period. And thus, in light of new technology, argued that the DES encryption algorithm should be decommissioned due to privacy risks. However, the NSA again was not going to go down without a fight. So even though DES was largely in the grave and the tombstone was already there, scientists had to put their final nail in the coffin, so to speak, of DES by developing a machine known as DeepCrack, which cost $240,000 to build and broke the DES algorithm in just 56 hours. What's more, they further said that to do the same thing in the future, the original cost of $240,000 would only actually be $50,000 now that the labouring and engineering was understood. So this theory and practicality combined essentially ended DES. And the rebirth of a new encryption standard in 2002 was known as AES, the Advanced Encryption Standard, which replaced DES, which was dead. And now, for any eagle-eyed listeners, the fun fact promised at the end of this video is that the National Bureau of Standards (NBS) is now known today as NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And stay tuned by liking and subscribing for our next video in our history lesson, which will cover AES. Thank you for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed the content as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you would like to see more content like this, it would be super fantastic if you could leave a like and subscribe to help support this channel's growth.